All right, so we're diving into the world of AlphaFold, huh? You've sent me a ton of research on this AI, and it seems like you're really captivated by it. Consider this your crash course. We'll break down how it works, its impact, and what it could mean down the line.
Yeah, what's always fascinated researchers is how to predict a protein's 3D structure just from a sequence of amino acids. It's a challenge for sure, one that's been around for ages. But AlphaFold really kind of flipped the script.
It's like trying to solve this massive molecular jigsaw puzzle just from a list of its pieces, right?
Right.
Our sources mention the older methods were either incredibly complex, trying to simulate actual physics, or they were limited by having to rely on evolutionary history.
Exactly, those older methods, they just weren't really cutting it when it came to speed and accuracy. But then along came AlphaFold, this AI system that's practically the Superman of structural biology.
I'm looking at this paper right now titled Highly Accurate Protein Structure Prediction with AlphaFold. And it seems like AlphaFold just barged onto the scene and completely transformed it with its accuracy.
It wasn't just an improvement. In these competitions, CSP 13 and 14, it basically rewrote the rulebook, leaving all the other prediction methods in the dust. It was a whole different ballgame.
Wow, so safe to say AlphaFold is a pretty big deal. But how does it actually work? This research gets a little dense.
Basically, at its core, AlphaFold is a deep learning system, which means it gobbles up massive, massive amounts of data. I'm talking a protein data feast here. Databases like the Protein Data Bank, the PDB were its training grounds.
So AlphaFold devoured this mountain of protein data and used it to crack the code of how proteins fold.
In a way, yeah. But the real magic is how it uses all that data. One of the keys is something called multiple sequence alignments, or MSAs. Imagine comparing the target protein sequence with tons of related proteins, looking for clues about how it evolved.
Like a detective tracing a family tree, but instead of distant relatives, it's proteins across millions of years of evolution. That's fascinating.
That's a great analogy. These MSAs help AlphaFold understand what's possible and what's not when it comes to the protein's structure based on its evolutionary journey, where it's been. It's all about recognizing those constraints.
So it's learning the rules of protein folding by studying nature itself. Pretty cool, but we're still talking about predicting distances between amino acids, right? How do you get from those distances to an actual 3D model of the protein?
That's where the distogram comes in.
Right.
Imagine this. AlphaFold predicts the distances between every single pair of amino acids in the protein. These predictions basically form a map, this distogram, that guides the creation of the 3D structure.
A distogram. Sounds like something out of Star Trek.
It might sound complicated, but picture a connect-the-dots puzzle. The dots are the amino acids, and the distances tell you how to connect them to reveal the final image, the protein.
Accuracy is vital in this process. Even a slight miscalculation in those distances, and the predicted structure could be totally off.
Exactly, you nailed it. And that's where AlphaFold truly shines. It uses this brilliant combination of a physics-inspired potential function and a mathematical technique called gradient descent optimization. Sounds complicated, right? But basically, they ensure the structure makes sense in the real world and help translate that distogram into a trustworthy 3D model.
It's like those connect-the-dot distances are a rough sketch, and then AlphaFold swoops in with its artist's palette to refine everything and create a masterpiece.
I like that analogy. And here's the kicker. AlphaFold doesn't just throw a structure at you and call it a day. It gives you a confidence score, a PLDDT, for each amino acid in that structure.
So it's like, hey, we're really sure about this part of the structure, but you might want to double-check that section over there.
Precisely. That PLDDT score helps researchers understand which parts of the prediction they can really trust, giving them more confidence in their work.
This is already blowing my mind, but what happens when proteins decide to team up? Those complex protein interactions. Can AlphaFold handle that level of intricacy?
That's an excellent question, and it leads us to something even more impressive, AlphaFold-Multimer. Remember how AlphaFold aced those CASP competitions? Well, at first, it was all about those single-chain proteins. But then they released AlphaFold-Multimer, which was designed specifically for tackling these multi-protein complexes.
So AlphaFold went back to school, got a PhD in protein interactions, and came back even stronger. That's incredible.
You got it. AlphaFold-Multimer uses some really ingenious techniques to predict the structures of these protein complexes. For example, it has to account for something called permutation symmetry. Basically, if you have multiple copies of the same protein in a complex, the order doesn't really matter. The overall structure should be the same.
So kind of like solving a jigsaw puzzle where some pieces are identical and you don't want to get tripped up by their similar shapes.
Exactly. They even added these cool new features called a SIMID and entity hid, which help the AI differentiate between unique chains and identical chains within a complex. This makes those predictions even more spot on.
This is getting incredibly powerful. What does this all mean in the real world? What are the actual implications of having a tool as advanced as this at our disposal?
That's where things get really interesting. This is where we begin to see the revolutionary potential of AlphaFold. And that, my friend, is a story for part 2 of our deep dive.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, from the nitty-gritty of how AlphaFold operates to its impact on things like research, drug discovery, and even just our understanding of proteins as a whole. Clearly, this AI is a total game changer, but what's next? Where do we go from here?
The truly mind-blowing part is that while AlphaFold is absolutely groundbreaking, it's really just the tip of the iceberg. It's like it sparked this incredible wave of AI-driven structural biology, with all these new tools and approaches popping up left and right.
So it's like AlphaFold was the initial spark that ignited a wildfire of innovation in the field.
Exactly. And one area that's particularly exciting is the development of AI models that go beyond simply predicting those static structures. Now they're starting to understand protein dynamics, how they move and groove.
Hold on, dynamics. You mean how proteins actually move and change over time? That's got to be way more complicated than figuring out just a fixed 3D model, right?
You bet it is. But remember, AI thrives on complexity. Researchers are training these new models on data that captures protein movement, things like molecular simulations and time-resolved experiments, to really see these proteins in action, how they work in real time.
So instead of just a single snapshot of a protein, we're getting a full-blown movie of it strutting its stuff. That's incredible.
You got it. That's the idea. Understanding these dynamics is crucial because proteins aren't just static things. They wiggle and shake, interact with each other, change their shape to get things done. They're like these tiny little molecular machines, incredibly dynamic.
That makes sense. A protein frozen in a single pose wouldn't be very useful in the hustle and bustle of a cell. But how does actually knowing how proteins move help us in a practical sense?
Well, think about drug design for a second. Imagine a drug that binds perfectly to a protein in one specific shape. But then that protein decides to shift into a different conformation, and suddenly the drug can't bind anymore. It's useless. But if we understand those dynamics, we can design smarter drugs, more adaptable ones, almost like a universal key that still works, even if the lock changes slightly.
So it's like we need to design drugs that can keep up with the proteins they're targeting, constantly adapting to their movements.
Exactly. But it goes way beyond just drug discovery. Understanding protein dynamics is about unraveling the secrets of how proteins carry out all their amazing functions within a cell. Everything from catalyzing reactions to transporting molecules to even regulating gene expression. It all involves protein dynamics.
It's really incredible when you think about it, understanding life at its most fundamental level.
Truly awe-inspiring. And as we keep digging deeper into this world, AI will undoubtedly continue to be an essential tool.
This entire deep dive has been mind-blowing. We've gone from the very basics of AlphaFold all the way to these incredible possibilities of what AI-driven structural biology can do. It genuinely feels like we're standing on the edge of a whole new frontier in understanding life itself.
And it's important to remember this is just the beginning. New discoveries and new challenges are emerging all the time, and that constant evolution is what makes this such a captivating field to be a part of.
Okay, so we've talked about how AlphaFold can map out these incredibly complex protein structures, but like you were saying, proteins aren't just static sculptures, are they?
Not at all. They're more like tiny, intricate machines, constantly buzzing with activity, and each movement is crucial to how they function.
Which brings us to protein dynamics. It feels like we're going from reading a protein's biography to watching its life story unfold in real time. So how do we even begin to unravel those mysteries, those intricate dances that proteins do?
Well, it's a massive challenge. But AI, once again, steps up to the plate. Imagine feeding all that complex data we get from things like molecular dynamics simulations, those computer models that simulate molecular movement, right into the AI's brain.
So we're basically force-feeding the AI information about how proteins wiggle and shake and interact with each other over time.
Precisely. And as the AI gobbles up this dynamic data, it begins to learn the patterns, the rules that govern protein movement. It's like teaching the AI to see proteins not as static structures, but as fluid, constantly changing entities.
It's like those flip books we had as kids, where you flip through the pages and suddenly a still image comes to life. Except instead of a stick figure walking, we're seeing proteins fold, bind, and interact in all their molecular glory.
Exactly. But here's the thing. Understanding how proteins move isn't just about creating cool animations. It has profound implications for how we approach, say, drug development.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I'm picturing a drug designed to hit a moving target. How does understanding protein dynamics actually play out in drug development?
Imagine you've got a drug, and it's designed to bind to a protein in a very specific shape, like a key fitting into a lock. But now, imagine that protein is constantly shifting and changing shape. Suddenly, that perfect fit might not be so perfect anymore. The drug loses its effectiveness.
So it's like trying to shoot at a moving target. You need to anticipate its trajectory to actually hit it.
Exactly. And that's where AI comes in. By understanding protein dynamics, by being able to predict how a protein will move and change over time, we can start to design more intelligent drugs. Drugs that aren't just targeted to a protein's static structure, but to its dynamic, constantly shifting form.
So drugs that can adapt in real time, almost like a self-guiding missile that can track its target, ensuring a more precise and effective treatment.
Now you're getting it. But the implications go even beyond drug design. Imagine understanding how proteins interact with DNA, how they repair damaged cells, how they fight off diseases. This knowledge could revolutionize entire fields, from medicine to bioengineering.
We've talked about drug discovery, disease research, and even bioengineering. Is there any area of biology that understanding protein dynamics won't touch? It seems like this knowledge is fundamental to so much of what we understand about life itself.
You're absolutely right. Protein dynamics are fundamental to pretty much every biological process out there. This isn't just about understanding proteins, it's about understanding life itself at its most fundamental level. And with AI's help, we're only just beginning to scratch the surface of what's possible.
This has been an incredible journey. We've gone from the elegant structure of AlphaFold to the intricate dance of proteins, from revolutionizing drug discovery to redefining our understanding of life itself.
And the most exciting part is that this is just the beginning. Who knows what incredible breakthroughs await us in the world of AI-driven biology?
To our listeners, we leave you with this. How do you envision AI shaping the future of biology and medicine? It's a question worth pondering as we stand on the precipice of this exciting new frontier. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into the fascinating world of science.